The gravel crunched under the car tires as we pulled into the driveway of the lakeside cabin. A canopy of pine trees swayed gently in the breeze, their rustling mingling with the faint lapping of water on the shore. The air was cool, but carried the warmth of the fading summer. This trip was meant to be a retreat, a few days away from the grind of city life and a chance to reconnect with Liam, my best friend since college. He was already out of the car, stretching his arms wide. His loose t-shirt clung to his back, damp from the long drive. "This place is perfect," he said, his voice carrying a note of excitement. "Just what we needed." I nodded, stepping out to take in the view. The cabin was rustic but well kept, with a porch that faced the glistening lake. It felt secluded, far removed from the chaos of our daily routines. It was just the two of us out here, like old times, yet something felt different now. There was a weight to the silence between us, a tension I couldn't quite name. Liam turned to me with a grin, his blue eyes bright with anticipation. "Come on, let's check it out." Inside, the cabin was cozy, with wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and a couple of worn but inviting couches. The air smelled faintly of cedar, mingling with the faint chill that seeped through the cracks in the windows. We dumped our bags in the bedrooms, and by the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the lake in hues of orange and gold, we were sitting on the porch, beers in hand. "You remember the last time we took a trip like this?" Liam asked, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Spring break, that road trip to Arizona." He chuckled. "And we got stranded in the middle of nowhere because you swore that shortcut would save us time." I laughed, the memory vivid in my mind. It was easy to get lost in nostalgia with Liam. His laugh was infectious, his presence grounding. But tonight, something was stirring under the surface, a quiet awareness of how much had changed between us over the years. The conversation drifted, and as the stars began to appear, we fell into a comfortable silence. The only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the gentle ripple of the lake. Liam tilted his head toward me, his expression thoughtful. "You've been quiet lately," he said softly. "Everything okay?" I hesitated, caught off guard by the question. "Yeah, just tired," I lied. The truth felt too complicated to untangle here now. He studied me for a moment, then nodded, letting it go. But his gaze lingered a little too long, and when I met his eyes, something unspoken passed between us. A flicker of curiosity, maybe something more. I looked away quickly, my pulse quickening. It was nothing, I told myself. Just the intimacy of the setting, playing tricks on my mind. But even as we said goodnight and retreated to our separate rooms, I couldn't shake the feeling that the trip was about to change everything. I lay awake in the cabin's small bedroom, staring at the wooden beams on the ceiling as the sounds of the forest whispered through the open window. The faint rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of crickets should have been calming, but my thoughts were anything but. Liam. His presence seemed to fill the entire cabin, even though he was just down the hall in his room. Every glance, every word, every smile from him tonight felt weighted, charged with something I couldn't name. Or maybe I didn't want to name it. I turned over, the sheets twisting around me. My mind replayed the way his gaze had lingered earlier on the porch, how his voice had softened when he asked if I was okay. It wasn't unusual for Liam to care, he always had, but tonight it felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that he saw something in me, something I wasn't ready to face. A soft knock at the door snapped me out of my thoughts. My breath caught, and for a moment I considered pretending to be asleep, but then I heard his voice, low and quiet. "Hey, you still up?" I hesitated, my heart pounding. "Yeah, come in." The door creaked open and Liam stepped inside, silhouetted by the faint light from the hallway. He was wearing the same t-shirt and sweatpants he'd changed into earlier, his hair slightly mussed. He looked casual, comfortable, like he belonged here in a way that made my chest ache. "Couldn't sleep," he said, leaning against the door frame. "Mind if I sit?" I shook my head, shifting to sit up in bed. "What's on your mind?" He crossed the room and sat at the foot of the bed, his weight causing the mattress to dip slightly. "I don't know," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Just thinking about stuff." "Stuff," I echoed with a small smile, trying to keep the mood light. "That's specific." He laughed softly, but it faded quickly. His expression turned serious, and he looked down at his hands. "I don't know how to say this without it sounding weird." I froze, my stomach twisting. "Liam, what?" "Let me finish," he interrupted gently, his gaze finally meeting mine. I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about how things feel different now." My pulse quickened. "Different how?" He sighed, leaning forward to rest his elbows on his knees. "I don't know. I feel like there's something I've been avoiding. Or maybe something we've both been avoiding." The air between us felt heavy, charged. I wanted to say something, anything, to diffuse the tension, but I couldn't find the words. My chest tightened as I watched him struggle to articulate what I was starting to fear I already knew. "I don't want to mess things up," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this thing between us." My breath caught. "Liam." "You don't have to say anything," he added quickly, holding up a hand. I needed to get it out there. Because being here with you, alone, it's—" He stopped himself, shaking his head. "I don't know. It feels like I'm finally seeing things clearly." The room felt too small, the air too thick. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. He was looking at me with an intensity that made my skin tingle, made every nerve in my body feel electrified. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice shaky. This is a lot." "I know." He leaned back slightly, giving me space but not breaking eye contact. "And I don't expect you to say anything right now. I just couldn't keep it to myself anymore." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was deafening, filled with the unspoken weight of everything that had just been said. My mind raced, torn between the comfort of our friendship and the possibility of something more, something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Finally, I managed to speak. "Liam, it's not that simple." "I know it's not," he said softly. "But I had to tell you, because if I didn't, I'd regret it forever." His words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. I didn't know how to respond, didn't know how to navigate the flood of emotion swirling inside me. All I could do was sit there, staring at him, as the reality of what he'd just confessed began to sink in. The room felt impossibly quiet, save for the faint sound of our breathing. Liam didn't move, didn't press me for a response. He just sat there, waiting, his vulnerability laid bare in a way I'd never seen before. "I need to think," I said finally, my voice barely audible. I need time." He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Take all the time you need." Without another word, he stood and walked to the door. He paused there for a moment, his hand on the frame, as if he wanted to say something else. But then he shook his head and left, closing the door softly behind him. I exhaled shakily, my chest tight with a mix of fear, confusion, and something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. My mind replayed his words over and over, each one sinking deeper into my consciousness. This trip was supposed to be a break, a chance to escape the chaos of everyday life. But now it felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't control, something that could change everything. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to step back or take the plunge. The next morning, the weight of the previous night still lingered heavily on my chest. I'd barely slept, my mind spinning with thoughts I couldn't untangle. The cabin felt eerily quiet as I got out of bed and pulled on a hoodie over my t-shirt. The air was cool, the smell of pine and damp earth wafting through the slightly ajar window. I considered staying in the room longer, pretending I needed more sleep, but I knew I couldn't avoid Liam forever. I didn't want to. I just didn't know what to say. When I finally stepped out of the room, the smell of coffee greeted me. Liam was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a mug in his hand. He was staring out the window, lost in thought, but he turned when he heard my footsteps. His gaze lingered on me for a moment before he smiled, a soft, tentative smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Morning," he said, his voice quiet. "Morning," I replied, forcing myself to meet his eyes. "You're up early." He shrugged. "Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd make some coffee. Want a cup?" I nodded, grateful for the distraction. As he poured the coffee, I sat down at the small wooden table, fidgeting with a napkin. The silence between us felt heavy, loaded with everything left unsaid. When Liam set the mug in front of me and took the seat across the table, I felt the tension grow even thicker. "I've been thinking about what you said," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "About us." He looked at me, his expression open but cautious. "And?" I hesitated, searching for the right words. I don't know what to do with it, Liam. I don't even know how to process it." He nodded slowly, his fingers tracing the edge of his mug. "I get that. I do. But I meant what I said. I'm not expecting anything from you. I needed to be honest." His honesty was disarming. It left me vulnerable in a way I wasn't used to, and I hated how exposed I felt. But I also couldn't ignore the warmth that spread through me when he looked at me like that, with a mix of hope and fear that mirrored my own. "I don't want to lose what we have," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "You're my best friend, Liam. The thought of messing that up—" "We won't mess it up," he interrupted gently, his eyes earnest. "Not if we're honest with each other. That's all I'm asking for. Honesty." Honesty. It sounded so simple, but it felt impossibly complicated. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how I felt. All I knew was that Liam's presence made my heart race in a way that both thrilled and terrified me. "I don't know how to be honest about something I don't understand," I admitted, my hands tightening around the mug. "This is all so unexpected." Liam leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on the table. "It's unexpected for me, too," he said softly, "but that doesn't mean it's not real." His words hung in the air, and I felt a wave of emotion rise in my chest. I looked away, unable to hold his gaze any longer. The vulnerability in his eyes was too much. It made me want to run and stay all at once. "I need time," I whispered. "I don't want to hurt you, Liam, but I can't give you an answer right now." He nodded, his expression softening. "I understand. Take all the time you need." We fell into a tense silence, sipping our coffee as the morning light filtered through the kitchen window. It wasn't the comfortable silence we were used to. It was charged, fragile, like the calm before a storm. After breakfast, Liam suggested we go for a hike. "It'll clear our heads," he said, his tone light, almost casual. I agreed, though I wasn't sure if fresh air could untangle the mess of emotions swirling inside me. The trail was narrow, winding through dense woods that smelled of pine and damp earth. Sunlight streamed through the gaps in the trees, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. We walked in silence for a while, the only sounds the crunch of leaves underfoot and the occasional chirp of birds. I couldn't stop stealing glances at Liam. He walked slightly ahead of me, his shoulders relaxed but his steps deliberate. His presence was steady, grounding, and yet it left me feeling unmoored. Every now and then he'd glance back at me, his lips curving into a small smile that made my heart ache. When we reached a clearing overlooking the lake, Liam stopped and turned to face me. His expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "This is nice," he said, gesturing to the view. "Peaceful." I nodded, stepping closer to the edge of the clearing. The lake stretched out before us, its surface shimmering in the sunlight. The view was breathtaking, but I could barely focus on it. All I could think about was Liam, standing just a few feet away, watching me with an intensity that made my skin tingle. Do you ever feel like... He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. Like something's been there all along, but you're only just now noticing it? I turned to him, my breath catching. What do you mean? He hesitated, his eyes searching mine. I mean, us. This, whatever this is. The vulnerability in his voice hit me like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just talking about last night or this trip. He was talking about everything. All the years we'd spent as friends, the moments we'd shared, the quiet undercurrents I'd always tried to ignore. I don't know, I admitted, my voice trembling. I don't know what to make of it. He stepped closer, his movements slow, deliberate. It's okay not to know, he said softly. But can I show you something? My heart raced as I nodded, unsure of what he meant but unable to say no. He reached out, his hand brushing lightly against mine. The contact sent a jolt through me and I looked up at him, my pulse pounding in my ears. Liam! Just let me, he whispered, his voice barely audible. His hand slid into mine, his fingers curling around mine in a way that felt both foreign and familiar. He held my gaze, his eyes searching mine for any sign of hesitation. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The warmth of his hand, the intensity of his gaze, it was all too much, too overwhelming. And yet, I didn't want it to stop. I stood there, frozen, as Liam's hand remained wrapped around mine. His touch was warm, steady, and somehow grounding despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. The lake glistened behind him, but I couldn't focus on anything except the way his fingers fit so naturally against mine, as if this was always where they were meant to be. Do you feel it? He asked softly, his voice barely audible over the gentle rustling of the trees. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. I don't know what I feel, I admitted, my voice shaky and uncertain. It wasn't a lie. I truly didn't know. The line between friendship and something more had always been a blur I refused to examine. Now, standing here with Liam so close, I could feel that line dissolving entirely. His gaze didn't waver, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. It's okay, he said after a moment, his tone gentle, reassuring. You don't have to figure it out right now. I just wanted you to know what's been in my heart for a while now. His words settled over me like a weight I hadn't known I was carrying until now. This wasn't just about the moment we were sharing. This was about years of friendship, of connection, of unspoken emotions we'd both been too afraid to name. I tried to speak, to say something, anything, to fill the silence between us, but the words wouldn't come. Liam seemed to sense my hesitation. Slowly, he released my hand, letting his fingers trail against mine as he pulled back. The absence of his touch sent a chill through me, and I immediately missed the warmth he had offered. I don't want to push you, he said, his voice quiet but steady. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this anymore. Being with you, it feels right. I turned away, staring out at the lake as my chest tightened. His words stirred something deep within me, something I had buried for years, too afraid to let it surface. I thought about every moment we had shared, the late-night talks, the way his laughter could light up the darkest days, the quiet comfort of his presence. It had always been there, hadn't it? That something, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for one of us to acknowledge it. Liam, I began, my voice trembling. What if this changes everything? What if we can't go back? It already has changed everything, he said simply, stepping closer, and I don't want to go back. I turned to him, my heart pounding as his words sank in. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation, only a quiet, steadfast certainty that left me breathless. For a moment, I thought about pulling away, about retreating back into the safety of what we had always been. But as I looked at him, I realized I didn't want safety. I wanted him, Before I could stop myself, I closed the distance between us. My hand reached for his, and the moment our fingers intertwined again, a wave of warmth spread through me. Liam's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't move, didn't speak. Instead, he waited, letting me take the lead. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't ignore this anymore." "You don't have to," he replied, his voice soft and full of emotion. "We can figure it out together." The sincerity in his tone unraveled something inside me, and before I could overthink it, I leaned in. My lips brushed against his in a hesitant, almost fleeting touch, and the world seemed to stop. It was soft, tentative, and yet it held all the weight of the emotions we had both been carrying for so long. Liam responded immediately, his hand sliding up to cup my face as he deepened the kiss. His touch was gentle, his lips warm and sure, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I stopped thinking. I stopped worrying about what this meant, about what would come next. All I could focus on was the way he felt, how perfectly we fit together. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads rested against each other, our breaths mingling in the stillness of the clearing. I opened my eyes to find him staring at me, his expression a mixture of awe and relief. "I've wanted that for so long," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "But it was worth waiting for." I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded, my heart racing as I tried to catch my breath. The kiss had unlocked something inside me, something I couldn't put into words yet. But I knew one thing for certain. I didn't regret it. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, the silence between us no longer heavy but comforting. Liam's hand remained in mine, his grip firm and reassuring. The lake shimmered in the background, the sunlight casting a golden glow over everything, as if the world itself was holding its breath for us. "Where do we go from here?" I asked finally, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Liam smiled, his thumb brushing softly against my hand. "One step at a time," he said. "We don't have to figure it all out today. We just have to be honest with each other." I nodded, his words grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. For the first time, the uncertainty didn't feel so overwhelming. As long as we faced it together, I knew we could find our way. Liam squeezed my hand gently, pulling me closer. "Come on," he said with a small smile. "Let's keep walking. There's more to see." And as we left the clearing, our hands still intertwined, I felt a quiet certainty settle over me. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it, with him by my side. The rest of the hike passed in a blur. The tension that had been simmering between us for so long seemed to dissolve into the crisp forest air. Our steps were slower now, more deliberate, as though we were both trying to savor the moment. Liam's hand brushed against mine more than once, and each time my pulse quickened. But neither of us spoke about what had just happened. It wasn't avoidance. It was something else. A kind of unspoken understanding that we were stepping into unfamiliar territory and needed to take our time. The silence between us felt different now. It wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It was filled with possibility. When we got back to the cabin, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the wooden porch. Liam set his pack down by the door and stretched, his shirt riding up just enough to reveal a sliver of his toned stomach. I looked away quickly, my cheeks flushing, but not before he caught me staring. He smirked, his expression playful but not teasing. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said quickly, my voice coming out a little too high-pitched. "Just tired." His smirk softened into a genuine smile, and he stepped closer, his gaze steady. "Me too. Long day." I nodded, suddenly hyper-aware of how close he was standing. The air between us seemed to thrum with energy, the kind that made my skin tingle and my breath catch. I wanted to say something, to break the tension, but before I could, he reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so simple, so intimate, that it took me completely off guard. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest as his fingers lingered just a moment too long. "You've got that look again," he said softly, his voice low and teasing. "What look?" I managed to ask, though my voice was barely audible. "That look like you're overthinking everything," he replied, his smile widening slightly. "Don't. Just be here with me." His words were so simple, yet they held a weight that settled deep in my chest. Be here with me. It was both an invitation and a plea, and I realized in that moment that it was exactly what I wanted too. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Okay." We stood there for a moment, neither of us moving as the world seemed to shrink down to just the two of us. And then, slowly, he leaned in. This time, I didn't hesitate. I met him halfway, our lips brushing together in a kiss that was soft but full of unspoken emotion. It wasn't like the kiss in the clearing. This one was slower, more deliberate. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt myself relax into him, my own hands sliding up to rest on his shoulders. The heat of his touch, the way his lips moved against mine, it was all so new, so overwhelming, yet it felt right. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless, my cheeks flushed. Liam's forehead rested against mine, his eyes closed and his breathing uneven. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Me too," I confessed, surprising even myself with the honesty of my words. He opened his eyes, his gaze locking with mine. "Then let's stop pretending this isn't real." I nodded, unable to find the words to respond. Instead, I leaned in again, capturing his lips in another kiss. This one was deeper, more passionate, and it sent a shiver down my spine. His hands tightened on my waist, pulling me even closer, and I felt my body melt into his. The kiss deepened, and suddenly, the weight of everything we'd been holding back came crashing down around us. It was as if years of unspoken feelings, of hidden glances and quiet longing, were finally breaking free. My fingers tangled in his hair, and his hands slid up my back, leaving a trail of heat in their wake. Before I knew it, we were stumbling inside, our movements clumsy but filled with urgency. The cabin door clicked shut behind us, and Liam pressed me against it, his lips never leaving mine. The wood was cool against my back, a stark contrast to the heat between us. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion as he pulled back just enough to look at me. I nodded, my breathing ragged. "I've never been more sure." That was all he needed. His lips found mine again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. His hands roamed my body with a mix of reverence and need, and I felt like I was coming undone under his touch. We moved together, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces, as if this was how it was always meant to be. The tension that had been building between us for so long finally erupted, and it was overwhelming, all-consuming. I lost myself in him, in the way he touched me, the way he kissed me, the way he made me feel seen and wanted in a way I never had before. When it was over, we lay tangled together on the couch, the room bathed in the soft glow of the fireplace.